Good evening, guys. I just want to welcome you guys to the second part of the school board forum. My name is Charlotte Westby, and I am the vice president of the Bloomington PTSA, who is co-hosting this event with the ladies here. This will last about 9 p.m. We have 11 candidates for 4 seats. And we're just going to kind of let you know the PTSA Council is a volunteer group. We are a rep from each one of the schools. We have a rep that actually meets once a month and discuss different issues that deal with the school. Volunteers will hand out blank cards and collect questions from you guys. The volunteers, you guys will raise your hands, and you are welcome to submit any written questions to the candidates as you like. Please use separate cards for each question. That way we can get them to the sorters. When you are done, hold up the card, and then we have people along the sides that will collect them from you guys. If you need more cards, just simply raise your hand, and then we can get you another card. Our sorters are going to be Nancy and Doug. They want to raise their hand. They're over here in the corner. And then we just wish to, if you wish to photography or record these events, please do not interfere with the audio. It is in progress. Please don't forget to vote either by early voting or at the polls on Tuesday, November 7th. Please remember that there is also a referendum on the ballot that'll be this year. And we also just want to let you know that Julie Morris and Jane Stowe were invited, but they did not come tonight. Now I would like to, again, to introduce Deb. She is going to be the moderator tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Debbie McNeil. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, Edina, and I am the moderator for tonight's candidate forum. The purpose of this evening's forum is to hear the candidates for Bloomington School Board discuss the issues that are important to you, and all the candidates that have filed for office were invited to the forum. I'd like to tell you the rules and the format for tonight's forum. The speaking order was set before the forum, and it will rotate with each question. Each candidate will have 30 seconds for an opening statement and 30 seconds for closing remarks. In order to ask more questions in the available time, we are going to alternate questions between changing groups of candidates, and candidates will have 1 minute to answer these questions. And before the closing remarks, the candidates will each have 1 minute to address any question that was not asked of their group or to expand on any answer they gave before. The forum will also have 1 or more lightning rounds where we're going to ask the candidates to answer a question very briefly, either in 1 sentence or with a yes or no reply. And all the candidates will have a chance to answer the lightning round questions. As the moderator, I will be asking all the questions, and all the written questions become the property of the League of Women Voters Bloomington. There's no campaign material allowed in Bloomington Civic Plaza, and the forum is being video recorded, so we ask that you hold your applause until the very end. Candidates, I ask that you speak directly into the microphone so your remarks are caught by the video. And I'm going to ask you questions, but don't look at me to answer. Instead, you want to look directly at the audience so that on the video, you'll be looking right at the camera. Here are the candidates for Bloomington School Board who are appearing tonight. Tom Bennett, Beth Beebe, John Moravec, Mike Polk, Paige Roman, Jim Sorum, Dawn Steigoff, Dan Stirrett, Marcia Sitzma. Did I miss anyone? Okay. Let's start now with opening statements by the candidates. And I think what we'll do is we'll go directly down the line, and you have 30 seconds. I'd ask you to watch the timers and heed their stop sign. Let's start with Tom Bennett, please.
Greetings. Okay, thank you. My name is Tom Bennett, and I am the current vice chair of the school board. I'm running for my 2nd term. My wife, Danielle, and I have lived in Bloomington for 13 years. We have 2 kids that attend Normandale Hills. Professionally, I'm a special education teacher. I've started my teaching career 16 years ago. I am currently teaching in Hopkins, and I think we're about just out of time, so I think let's move on. Thank you.
Okay, Beth Beebe.
Hi, Thanks for coming tonight. My name is Beth Beebe, and I have been a citizen in Bloomington for 17 years. I've been very active in education for over 34 years, and I have been active in my community wherever I have lived. I'm looking forward to the opportunity for you to get to know me better. Please go to my website to find out a lot more information. But I hope you'll find that my involvement in education and dedication to my community makes me an excellent candidate for this Bloomington School Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Dawn Steigoff?
Thank you to the PTSA and the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I have been advocating for children all of my life. I have served on committees in leadership positions at both the local and the state level. I want to live in a community that provides a quality education to every child. My children benefited greatly from attending Bloomington Public Schools, and I believe in paying it forward. This is my first term. I believe we've made positive changes and would like to continue the work we've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you. John Moravec.
Thanks to LWV and PTSA. My name is John Moravec, and I'm asking for your vote because I believe it is time for positive change to put our kids and our teachers first. I'll be a school board member who listens, who is more present in our schools, transparent in how we operate, and will honor the work, the effort, and the skills it takes to be an effective educator.
Thank you very much. Mike Polk?
Hi, I am Mike Polk. A lot of you know that I work with youth in our school district. I'm running for school board because we have problems that our district does not want to talk about. Problems that are holding us back, problems that are holding our kids back. We need to make sure that school is a safe place to learn and to grow for everyone. I will continue to reach out to the families that feel they do not have a voice and show them that their children matters and to know that their voice matters.
Thank you. Jim Sorum.
Hi, I'm Jim Sorum. I'm a current board member seeking re-election to join the team to ensure every student has a chance to succeed. For 35 years, I've been involved in investing in the Bloomington schools and the community. I've had 3 children, and I have 5 grandchildren going to 4 different schools. I've had experience in business and elective office. That's why my campaign theme is Experience Matters. In all walks of life, be it professional sports, bus driving, teaching, babysitting, or school boarding, it's especially important that experience matters, and I have it.
Thank you very much. Paige Roman.
Hi, I'm Paige Roman, and I am the parent of 2 Bloomington schools kids in elementary and middle school. I'm your neighbor. I serve on the city's 2040 Comprehensive Plan Committee and also volunteer with my son's Boy Scout troop. Our schools are complicated places, and I'm pleased to be with you tonight to hear directly from the voters about the issues that are on your minds and to share my thoughts on those as well as other topics, including communication, partnership, and inclusion, and I look forward to the evening.
Thank you very much. Marcia Sitzma.
Hi. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and the PTSA for this evening. I am a parent of 2 daughters who have gone through Bloomington Public Schools. My youngest is a junior at Jefferson. I am running for school board because I believe it is time for a policy that supports safe schools for all students and champions diversity and equity as a primary focus.
Thank you. Dan Steerett.
I was out for coffee with a friend the morning that I decided to run for school board. Before going home, I stopped by Normandale Hills Elementary, where I went to school. And I sat on a bench next to the playground and reflected on how I got to where I am today. It all started there in school. I'm running for school board because I believe education offers one of our greatest opportunities for growth and development. Thanks for being here tonight. I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Because there are so many candidates, we're going to have changing panels to answer different questions, and at the end, a cleanup question where you may address anything that you like, whether or not you were asked it before. This first question is for Jim Sorum, Paige Roman, Mike Polk, Tom Bennett, and John Moravec. Here's the question. If elected, how will you be an advocate or a voice for the district's low-income, special needs, and minority students? And you each have 1 minute to comment on that. Could we start with Jim Sorum?
Okay, if elected, hopefully, and having an opportunity, I guess over the years that we've been doing it, it seems that we just always have special groups that need attention. And granted, our number one concern is having enough finances so that we can staff all of the positions that we need. We have a variety of, and it's increasingly with diversity coming up now. So it needs attention and it needs the support that we have so far, and we have to work more to get enough staff to house those particular areas that are of the great concern.
Thank you very much. Paige Roman.
I think first and foremost, spending, and as a board member, I have to spend time sitting with the folks who most are affected by decisions that the board would make. And so I would need to have a really good understanding from members of the community who are struggling or experiencing needs. I would also want to speak with the teachers. What are the challenges that the staff in our schools see our various communities are struggling with or experiencing? This is kind of a theme of how I approach things, is a lot of listening, a lot of synthesizing big topics, various points of views, finding the nuggets about how do we move forward together, and then I think working then with the peers on the board to look at what are they hearing, what's working well in our schools, where are our gaps, and how do we prioritize that in our budget.
Thank you very much. Mike Polk.
I would say foremost is to work with the teachers to get their concerns and understand their problems that they're having with the kids. And with the work I do already with the youth in our school district here, I will continue on with that. And plus, I'll start engaging the family into a lot of our conversations about how we can engage all kids, all families involved in our school district. And that once we get and set with all the teachers and what grade it is, kindergarten and special needs, and sit down and carry on a communication, we can solve a lot of the problems.
Thank you very much. Tom Bennett.
I think as a school board member, I think that the three areas need to be policy, vision, and engagement. I think that we as school board members need to be out engaging with our diverse families and our students of the most need. And I think we've been making some good gains over the past couple of years with more engagement and some cultural liaisons in the school, but I think there's still more things we need to do. I think that also one thing that we need to set the vision for the district, that we want to be a more inclusive district, and we want to strive to have more diversity and welcome diversity. I think that one thing that we've done over the past year is we started having more equity conversations as a district level with the school board and with the administration. And I think that that's one thing that we need to keep working on. And also I think it's important that we need to start diversifying our staff, because our students are about 50% diverse, but our staff is probably about 96% white. So we need to have our staff be more reflective of our students. And I think that would be helpful for our students, because I think that, out of time, sorry.
Thank you. John Moravec.
You know, our diversity is our greatest asset. And this is something that we need to embrace and we need to attend to and to look at to how we can all transform and learn from each other. It involves listening, involving each other, outreaching with each other, and I would say most of all, placing trust in each other that we can come together as a city. Placing trust in our students, placing trust in our families, and making our schools welcoming to all students and families as well.
Thank you very much. For the second question, I wonder if these candidates would answer. Dan Steerett, Marcia Sitzma, Beth Beebe, and Dawn Steigoff. Here's the question. Describe the achievement gap in this district. What causes it and what can be done? Could we start with Dan Steerett?
Well, yeah, the achievement gap is a very real thing, and I think it got a lot more attention a few years ago, and it, at least by my read, seems to be losing some of the attention that's been given to it, but it's a very real thing. I know that looking at some of the statistics in Bloomington over the last few years, there's as much as a 30-point gap between white students and students of color, as well as students of special needs, English learners, and special education students. And it's something that needs to be addressed. And I think so far the approach that we've had has been pretty good, with teachers meeting to review curriculum and to revise that accordingly, because they know the needs of our students and what will help to address the special needs that some groups have. And I think that's a good beginning, but I think there needs to be a lot more community engagement, a lot more community conversation about this, because the achievement gap is a whole lot more than what happens in the classroom. It also has a lot to do with social determinants of health and wellness in our community. So it's something that goes even broader than our schools.
Thank you very much. Marcia Sitzma.
I work in a couple of high-needs schools in Minneapolis. This is a common issue that we struggle with, because it's also the incremental interactions with students who are different from the teachers and professionals who are serving them. I have a great respect for all of the teachers, the wonderful teachers that my kids have had, but I also know that you have to look at a student's struggles and making sure that they're relevant, that the curriculum is relevant. And as a member of the curriculum committee, this was a very central part of what we were focusing on, is because when students feel that curriculum is more relevant to their life experiences, you will see less of a gap in those schools and communities where that kind of effort is taking place.
Thank you very much. Beth Beebe.
Well, this is really right where I have a passion, because I believe that we need to work with those students that are in this area of the achievement gap. And sometimes it's finances, sometimes it's family structures, sometimes it's the fact that we need to invest more in those kids that are not in special ed, not in the gifted. And so one of the things that I have been looking into has been the math and reading core, that we can use this independently evaluated resource, which is federally funded, and then the school district pays a certain amount. But it's a real win-win situation to help achieve this. Now, they're starting this in the Minneapolis School District, and they have found some success with it. Our parents are stressed. Often in this age group, we've got kids that are in a family where there's not even two parents at home. So we need to come alongside them when they're in the school with the tutoring that they can get there, because they can't afford it like a lot of other kids can, and they need it.
Thank you. Dawn Steingoff.
I would like to call it the opportunity gap instead of the achievement gap. That's what I refer to it as. It begins with quality early childhood education and having access to that. If you understand child development, we know that most brain development is happening by 4 and 5 years old, and we need to not have kids come to school 3 years behind their peers when they arrive to kindergarten. That starts them down the long line of achievement gap. Our schools are already doing great intervention. I've been to their meetings where they're doing their data on intervention. We already have reading core in our schools that are coming to work with our students. I also think that we have to partner with our community to make sure the kids are coming to school well-fed, not hungry. We're doing that with several churches in the community, are feeding kids, including my own church, on the weekends, so that they have access to food and other things that they need at home. And another thing our district is doing is we're giving every student the ACT class or test now.
Thank you very much. The next question is for Paige Roman, Dawn Steingoff, Dan Steerett, Marcia Sitzma, and Jim Sorum. Here's the question. Do you think that enough of our graduates are college ready? Could we start with you, Paige Roman?
Sure.
Thank you.
I think that's the presumption that we start with. I think I would reframe it, and it's not, are enough of our graduates college ready? Are enough of our graduates ready for the path that they want to take ahead of them? I worked for a number of years in higher education, and any post-secondary education, whether it's 2-year, 4-year technical training, students need to leave prepared for some avenue of advanced education to position themselves for a career going forward. So are enough of our kids ready for college? Are they leaving college ready? you know, I guess the question is, are the students who want to leave and pursue college, are they ready? And that's, again, it varies. Some kids are wanting to get into the Ivy schools, and that's going to require a certain bar. Some kids are going to want to go to a regional comprehensive school, and that's a different bar. And some kids are going to be ready for technical training. And as long as we're preparing our students, and I think we're doing that trying to do that through the Pathways program, we're on the right track.
Thank you very much. Dawn Steingoff.
I don't think that we want to have everybody college ready. There's some students that they're not going to go to school. They either cannot afford it or they feel that they cannot get in. And if we teach students that that's the only option for them, then we're losing students in high school because they're giving up because they don't see that that is a path for them. That's why we started the College and Career Academy, where we are partnering with businesses in the community that have given us grants to train people for jobs that are good paying jobs that do not take 4-year degrees. And we have many partners already helping with us, because I don't think college is 4 years is always for every student when they graduate. They may go back later and finish that, but we have students that are going into work because they need it financially for their family, or maybe they just want to get a 2-year training instead. Also, we have personal growth plans already, and it shows everybody when they're on target for a 4-year or other.
Okay, thank you very much. Dan Steerett.
Are enough of our graduates college ready? I would agree with what others have said, that it's not just a question about college readiness, but after high school readiness, whether that's for a career or direct work or going on into college. I think that Bloomington has a great opportunity, has been investing greatly already in preparing our students for graduation. The rollout of the personal growth plans that have been part of our Pathways to Success program have had dramatic impact on preparing our students to be ready to graduate by giving them extra special activities for strategies for success while in high school, as well as thinking about career counseling and the direction that they want to head in life, which is something that I don't think I thought about until I was sophomore, junior in high school. And the personal growth plans is actually rolling out much earlier, like into middle school and eventually even into the elementary level. Having said that, our goal as a district is for all students to be ready for career in college. So are enough grads ready? Not yet, but we're getting there.
Thank you. Marcia Sitzma.
I came into education from a career in selection. And what that means is I was looking at people coming into the workforce and seeing if they were ready for companies. I think that we should, as all of the other speakers have said, look at the variety of options for students and not just push college as the only option. But I also think we need to be mindful that when we are working with the Pathways model, that it doesn't turn into another form of tracking, because we should make the flexibility of choosing your own path part of the process. I think that the work we do with our AVID program in preparing students for understanding what college entails will make them more prepared, should that be their choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Sorum.
Okay, I have to agree with mostly what's been said already, so I could just say simply ditto. But at the same time, we have put in place, as was mentioned, student program planning, where they do start and determine what they want to be when they get big, and then they work toward that goal. They have goals, and it might change every year. And so starting that at an early age, they can have a lot of different opportunities. We have some wonderful intern programs that we have incorporated with businesses as they become our partners, where the students can actually go over there and decide if this is something they want to pursue or not. And then at the same time, they need support from the families as they go through this personalized growth plan in order to make sure that they are on the right track. A lot of times the students will do something different than what has been talked with the teachers and the counselors and the parents. So it's a total group that's going to make sure that the students follow their pathway.
Thank you very much. The next question is for Tom Bennett, John Moravec, Beth Beebe, and Mike Polk. Here's the question. What are your thoughts on flipping the start times for elementary and high school? Could we start with you, Tom Bennett?
Sure.
Thank you.
I think that's been a common theme lately, because when you look at the research that the older students are staying up later and they're having to wake up to get to school, they're not having enough sleep. So I think it's an interesting conversation to have. I think it would be great to start high school a little bit later, but the problem is if you start high school later, then the elementary schools have to start earlier. So it's not just a quick fix. So I think it's something that we should be looking at and see if we can find a way where we can start the high school later and maybe the elementary a little bit earlier. So I'd be interested in that type of conversation.
Okay, thank you. John Moravec.
Echoing off of Tom, research seems very clear that later starts for high school leads to improved performance. And so I think that's something that we should look into quite seriously. Another problem that we have, though, is that we have industrial hours for education. We seem to bought into the idea that kids learn best from 7:45 in the morning until 2:37, which isn't true. Kids are always learning. And I think that maybe we should start looking at more flexible hours or more innovative ways to approach school scheduling. So I think that'd be kind of a fun thing to pursue as a board. Mm-hmm. You guys agree? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Beth Beebe.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting, having had teenagers and seeing that they are very nocturnal and getting going in the morning is difficult. I think that is something to take into account. I think the thing that we also have to have challenges about are the athletic programs. And if, we have practices after school, when are those going to be fitted in, and other athletic schedules with other schools, how that fits in. So there's kind of a lot to take into account, but I'm also like with John, I think it's like we need to think more creatively, and how can we deal with the fact that teenagers, like Tom said, are nocturnal, and yet also the complication of, starting elementary school early, and kind of the taxing that could be on some families as well.
Thank you very much. Mike Polk.
I agree with Bibi and John, because there's a lot of negative goes along with changing your hours for the kids because of the sports. And because, as they say, if you're playing sports, you're going to be up late anyway. So, and you're still not going to get enough sleep. So, as far as with elementary kids, starting them I would prefer for them to stay at the same hours they're at school now, because starting them earlier or starting them later really ain't gonna make that much difference. Only thing about if you start them earlier, they'll be out in the cold longer than they should be. Mm-hmm. But I agree with these two with Bibi and John. There's things that we can experiment on just to check, see how it works. But as far as high school kids, I don't see it changing that much, because as you know, I work for Wayzata Public Schools, and they changed the hours there, and they're going through a lot of changes with that.
Thank you very much. Now it's time for a lightning round. And in this lightning round, I'd like to ask you to answer this question yes or no. And I would say that the following question will allow you to expand on your answer. So the question is, are you in favor of the referendum? And I think maybe we should just start. Dan Sterrett, would you be willing to start? And can we just go down the line and tell us, are you in favor of the referendum? Yes or no, candidates?
Yes.
Okay. Mark
Yes.
Sitzman? Paige Roman?
Yes.
Jim Sorum?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely yes.
Okay. Dawn?
Yes.
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 Okay. Thank you. Now, for a minute each, would you tell us what are your reasons for being in favor of it, and if there's a leeway in spending the money, how you would spend it? Can we start now with you, Tom, and go down?
Okay.
Yes, now we'll go the other way, and everybody can have a chance to answer this question.
Sure, I'm for it. I voted yes for every referendum that has been on the ballot for my entire life. I'm part of this because I'm a special education teacher, so I'm in the public schools, and I know how important they are. I'm also for it because it's where a lot of our funding comes from. If this referendum that is on the ballot were to fail, then we as a district would lose $17 million a year. Mm-hmm. And for those of us that are board members a couple years ago and we had to cut $4 million, it was an extremely difficult thing to do. I couldn't even imagine what it would look like to cut $17 million. So it is very important for this referendum pass. This is an operating referendum, so that means this is money going directly to the classroom and instruction and transportation. So it's not something that's going to be used to be to be building buildings or anything like that. It's going to our students and to our classrooms. So it's incredibly important. So, I think it's the most important thing on the ballot this November. I've said plenty of times that I would rather lose this election and the referendum pass than me win this election and the referendum fail, because if the referendum fails, I think we all lose.
Thank you very much. Let's just keep going down the line. Thank you.
Sure, I agree with Tom. It's essential that we pass it because this is what keeps our school lights on. This is what keeps our kids getting to school. And this is what pays our teachers. And our teachers need to be valued. And so we want to make sure that the good programs that Bloomington has already in place are able to be maintained and don't have to be cut. I think that would affect our attempt to close the achievement gap. And I don't think we want to lose any of that. And as far as leeway of funds, my understanding is that the funding that comes in is to extend a referendum that was passed before, continue the programs that we have in place, and the extra increase is just to be able to cover it for inflation. So there are no extra funds for us to work with. It's just a matter of keeping things at the status quo.
Thank you very much. Dawn Steigoff.
I've also supported every referendum that's ever come to vote on as a parent. Before I had kids, whatever, I've always supported. I believe in public schools. I've always supported referendums. This is the 4th referendum I've actually volunteered on in this district and worked to try to pass, so clearly I support it. As everybody else has said, it's an operating referendum, so school districts are required to go out every 10 years to ask for renewal of their operating referendum. So it is about lights, salaries, keeping the buildings open, etc. So I'm not looking to spend it on anything in particular either. But the other thing people have to remember is it's for 10 years, so it's not like you want to spend it all the first year either. Everything, we have to budget wisely because it'll be 10 years before we would go for, I would assume, before another operating levy like this. So, thank you.
Thank you. John Moravec.
Well, this is an operating referendum. So, as was said before, this is literally for keeping the lights on. So, if this is not to pass, we would have some real challenges. This is not discretionary money for special projects. There aren't any pet projects or anything, that people will be concerned about apart from literally keeping the lights on. But one thing that really concerns me is that if this does not pass, there are 22 referenda taking place around 40 area school districts. Some will pass, some will not. And we're looking at some real equity issues between districts. Some districts are going to have a whole lot more money than other districts, and we don't want to be one of the districts that does not have the money. We need to pass this.
Thank you. Mike Polk.
I agree with John and Bibi about the referendum, and I would say, as far as the money-wise and things that we spend the money on, we should have the families in the community know what we spend it on. We should always have our open meeting so you guys to know, so you guys can give us your feedback to let us know that we're spending the money on the right things without wasting the money, because we know it's for the kids and it's for the programs that we have, and it's mainly, I'm concerned, it's for taking care of our teachers and the staff to help us stay strong without spending money on unnecessary stuff.
Thank you very much. Jim Sorum.
Okay, as was mentioned earlier, with having 3 adult children now and 5 grandchildren in the schools, we have supported the referendums in the past and worked hard, especially for the operating. We have the lowest class size in the metro area, and we want to continue that. We have neighborhood schools, and we have good staff in these neighborhood schools, and so it's important for us to continue the operating levy as such. A few years back, we tried to have the legislature pass a law that says we're as easy to deal with as, well, I should say it this way, we're unfortunate that we're the only taxing authority that has to go out for the public and seek a referendum. The state, the county, the local can just raise our taxes the way they have been, and we have no control over it. We can talk to them about it, but yet at the same time, whenever the schools need more money, we have to go out locally for the referendum, and that makes it kind of tough. So we've always tried to paint a positive picture.
Thank you very much. Paige Roman.
I'm very committed to working to ensure the referendum passes. I am serving on the Citizens Volunteer Committee, the Yes for BPS group, and we meet every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. And for those of you who know me, 7 a.m. is a feat. One of the reasons I think we need to pass the referendum especially is because that gives the board, the administration, the staff 10 years of a relative degree of fiscal certainty. Now, you don't know what happens with the state, which is one of the major financial partners of the school. But when the financial house has some foundation under it, then we can really talk about the real issues, the issues that we talked about tonight already. You know, so far we've talked about our low income, our special needs, our minority communities. We've talked about the achievement gap. And so when we feel like we don't have to spend our time, talents, and treasure trying to just shore up the basic budget, we can really focus on the issues.
Thank you very much. Marcia Sitzma.
I'm for the referendum, as I've been for every referendum that I've ever voted on. It's because it's an investment in our community. Our children are not a cost center. They're an investment. Our teachers are an investment in our community. And as far as discretionary use of the funding, I think that one of the biggest impact research-wise on student achievement is the relationship between a teacher and students. And that as we keep our class sizes small, we have more opportunities for those relationships to take place, because teachers are not, I work with a lot of teachers in classrooms that are way too big. So that is why I'm for the referendum and have lobbied the state to maintain funding at the local level as well.
Thank you. Dan Steerett.
I look at the referendum through a couple of different lenses. One as a parent, I have 3 kids in the Bloomington school systems, and so as a parent, I definitely want to see this investment in my kids and in the kids across our district. The other lens that I look at it through is as an organization development consultant, which my job is as a consultant is to come in and bring diverse groups of people together and make good, positive decisions for the long haul for an organization. And I think that the referendum is a great example, a practical example of community and school partnerships. It's a contract that we have with the community to say, you know, if we're going to have good schools and we're going to do the things that we want to do, we need community partnership and support in order to make it happen. And I think this is a great way to demonstrate that trust of the schools and what it is that we're doing in our classrooms. I also like to think about strategic budgeting, so I appreciate the question about if there is any leeway, what we can invest in. I think that we tend to underfund special ed, paraprofessionals, counselors, mental health initiatives, and so I would definitely like to see more investment there if we can.
Thank you very much. For this next question, could this group of 5 candidates address it? Mike Polk, Marcia Sitzma, Tom Bennett, Jim Sorum, and Dan Steerett. And here's the question. What are your thoughts on moving to a one high school scenario? So, Mike
First?
Polk, yes, would you like to answer first?
Yeah, that's fine. My thoughts is that I don't think having one high school is good for our district because of the number of kids and families moving into our district. And that way the schools will always grow. And we're just not talking about money for the referendum, so we're not ready to build another school. So I think we should continue with having 2 high schools in the district here. And that will give us more opportunities to spend the money on different programs that we have instead of worrying about having one school, because that would bring more problems than we already have.
Thank you very much. Marcia Sitzma.
My kids have gone to Jefferson. They begged me to go to Kennedy. I think the biggest issue, we should maintain the schools that we have, but I think a bigger issue is reducing the disparity between the 2 schools and looking for opportunities where, as they do with some of the cheer competitions or other competitive aspects, look for opportunities to partner with and collaborate across Bloomington. But I do think that there is an advantage in having a community school and in having your high school near where you live. But I do think that we need to decrease the disparate programming that I hear from families that is going on across the two schools.
Thank you. Tom Bennett.
When I talk to parents around Bloomington, some of the things that they like most about Bloomington Public Schools are small schools and small class sizes. Most of our elementary schools are about 400 students, and our high schools are about 1,500 each. I teach in Hopkins at an elementary school. There's 700 kids, and the high school there's about 2,600 kids. You look over at Eden Prairie, I think they have 3,800 kids in their school. And when it gets schools that large, there's really no personal connection. The principal doesn't know all those kids. Those kids become a number. So I'd really rather keep both of our schools open. I think it's something that our community wants. And I do think that we need to work on closing the disparities between the two schools. That's something that I think that we have been striving over for as long as I've been on the board and will continue with, because I think we want to have, doesn't matter what school you go to, you should have an equal education.
Thank you very much. Jim Sorum.
This has been an issue that's been tossed around for quite a few years. Should we do it? And if we combine the schools into one, we'll definitely have a stronger football program than an awful lot of them, or sports programs. But then is that the real purpose for having high schools? No, it's secondary. And each school has its own personality, and it changes from year to year, from class to class. Some of the exciting things about it is Kennedy has always had a terrific singing program, and Jefferson has always had a tremendous marching band program. And so we've also bandied about an issue of, maybe we should have core subjects in the morning and then elective courses in the afternoons at the schools, but then there'd be the traffic problems that would occur. But we want to give every student an opportunity to participate. In the two high schools, we have 600 at least, and sometimes more because of the duplications of their sports, participating. If we eliminate that, there's an awful lot of kids that won't be involved in some of the social aspects.
Thank you very much. Dan Steerett.
I think it's an interesting idea to have one high school, and my guess is that there are a lot of reasons behind it. It could be sports. I think that also could be a sense in which people are wondering if we can consolidate resources and in some ways save money. I do have some concerns about the concept of a mega high school, especially as Tom mentioned, what that would mean for Bloomington in particular. The size of high school that we're talking about would be pretty enormous and would outsize any building that we currently have. So it would mean building something brand new, which is a whole nother range of expense. I think, I'm old enough to remember when we had 3 high schools and went down to 2. And I think that there's something to be said about having multiple high schools in Bloomington that allows us to be flexible with changing enrollment that we've seen over the years and can anticipate for the future. If we have one high school that is too large for the number of students that we have, we end up with a lot of empty space. And so I think having multiple high schools ends up being a greater sustainable long-range plan.
Thank you very much. This next question is for this group of candidates: John Moravec, Paige Roman, Dawn Steigoff, Beth Beebe. Here's the question. Do you think that we are providing enough challenge to our gifted and talented students? John Moravec, would you be willing to start?
Do we provide enough challenge to our gifted and talented students? I don't know, because that's up to each student. I think that to challenge students the most, we need to set them free as most as we can. We have to place trust in them. We have to provide them with agency and a sense of self-efficacy. So agency is, the amount of freedom we allow them. Self-efficacy is that feeling or self-belief that we can do things. And the gifted and talented students, we need to focus more on how do you learn how to learn? How do we learn to unlearn the things that we don't need to know anymore? How do we relearn and sort of build this metacognition of knowing what we do not know? And I think that's a challenge that we need to place upon each student. So for me, it's probably a bad answer. We have to go revisit this. But for me, we just needed to trust the students more and really in gifted programs such as DA, we need to really focus on how we could attend to this agency and self-efficacy so that students can develop their maximum potential.
Thank you. Paige Roman.
I think, not unlike what John said, is it's hard to know for sure, but I think there are two different ways of looking at this. There are the traditional, gifted and talented students who are superstars at everything, and we provide targeted programming to help keep those students challenged and engaged. But I think of equal import and just as valuable is the students who have talents and skills in maybe one area. And if you're not in a small classroom, which we have the luxury of having in Bloomington, in the small classroom, the teacher can identify the student who, this student is doing fine in reading, they're doing fine in writing, and they're really amazing in math. And so we can provide some supplemental to boost them up. And so I think it really is individual by the student, and that's one of the advantages of where we've chosen to make our investments as a community. Because I know I can speak for myself and my own family. We've seen some of that, the results that has been positive.
Thank you. Dawn Steingoff.
I think for the most part we are, but always there's an exception. Are there a couple students that need to be challenged more? Probably. I mean, that's kind of the way it is everywhere. There's always somebody that needs more than what a program is providing. I know that when I'm out in the community, I have met a lot of families that are either open enrolling for our gifted and talented, or after they open enrolled, they have now moved here, bought houses in Bloomington and come here for that program. So I think for the most part, it is doing a very good job. We also just added a new program at the community college so that they can go there. And I also think that we have very talented teachers that can teach to different levels of their students, even in the gifted talented program, and can accommodate what they need.
Thank you very much. Beth Beebe.
I agree with Don. Yes, there are some good things out there, and I actually met a parent last week who was singing the praises of the Dimensions Academy, which is our gifted and talented program, and saying how much she appreciated it for her student. And I think that we are doing a good job. It's been there for a long time. When my students were in the elementary school, they also had something called Destination Imagination, and it was something that was good for kids that needed more, needed challenge, and there was competition. And so there was an avenue at the elementary level, and also they started the Dimensions Academy over at Ridgeview, and now it goes through the middle school as well. And I think, too, for students that are really, gifted and want to move on, I think it's excellent that we have access to Normandale Community College with post-secondary education options that can challenge them even further. So we really have a good outlet for them.
Thank you very much. This next question is for this group of candidates: John Moravec, Beth Beebe, Marcia Sitzma, and Tom Bennett. Do you think the cost of public education is rising faster than it should? John Moravec, would you be willing to start?
I got 1 minute.
Yes.
Okay. So I have a PhD in educational policy administration, and this is something that we look at quite a bit. And I think that the cost of education is rising as it should, because it is a human-centered enterprise, right? It's people-powered. We don't get the same efficiencies that we're seeing in other industries due to software or machines. We rely on people, and people are freaking expensive. We need healthcare, we need support, we need affordable housing. So the cost of education is increasing as it should.
Thank you very much. Beth Beebe.
Well, I would love to pay teachers what I think they're worth. So I don't think it has risen as much as it should, because I know what it takes to be a teacher. I know the time commitment. I know that they work late hours, plus they have families when they get home that are needing their attention. But they sacrifice. They even sacrifice their own funds to be able to, accommodate the things they want to do in their classrooms. We need to know that there is a need to value education. And I think that there needs to be more value given to it than what we have. And I'd like to see more funding come from the state. And I'd also like to make sure that any referendum that comes through gets passed so that we can invest in our culture. When I lived in Japan for 3 years, I got to observe how the Japanese do things. Their greatest thing is that they invest in their children. Wouldn't it be great if we could say that?
Marcia Sitzma?
I'm going to say ditto to a lot of that, but what I'm really going to say is that we are asking our teachers and our support services, individuals, and everyone to make more and more sacrifices for our kids. And so I do think that we have to make a commitment to invest in our schools. And I don't think that the funding is underfunded. Overfunded. I think it is underfunded. And so I'm really frustrated by every time there's a borrowing that happens at the state level, they take it from education first. Yes, it's the biggest area, but I also think it's because it is the most complex investment, as John pointed out.
Thank you very much. Tom Bennett.
It's kind of an interesting question. Is it raising faster than it should? I mean, it's definitely raising too fast, and I think the biggest problem with it is that the funding is not keeping up with the cost of education. You know, I think if you go back 20 years ago, where schools had much more funding, and the students didn't have as many of the needs that they do now. We have many kids now that have more mental health issues that are at risk, and we're getting less funds. So as a teacher that works in a school, and kind of what Marcia was getting at is like we're being asked to do more with less. We have, in the special ed, we have higher caseloads with less parents. You know, teachers have more kids in their class, and it doesn't just hit the classroom, it hits the entire school district. I mean, if you talk to cooks or to paras or to administrators, they're all having to tighten their belts to save money. And if we look at the state funding, the past 20 years, if they were to pay us back for all the money to keep up with inflation, they would have to give us a lump sum of 10%. And we're lucky if we get 2% every year. And people say, well, you got 2%. Why are you complaining? It's like, yeah, we've been underfunded for decades. So.
Thank you very much. This next question is for this group of panelists, of candidates: Dawn Steingoff, Jim Sorum, Dan Stirrett, Mike Polk, Paige Roman. How would you, as a school board member, address a budget shortfall in the school district's budget? Dawn Steigoff, would you like to start?
Just got to write it first. Sorry.
Sure.
Okay. Well, since we've done this multiple rounds, it isn't pleasant to do rounds and rounds of cuts. Since I was elected to this board 4 years ago, I've never been in a year that we didn't do cuts. So, it's not a pleasant thing to do. Some of the things that have happened in our district is they've held meetings for people to talk about topics and things that they think where things could be cut or where things could be saved money. There's been access for people to send online, I think, comments about it. But what I have focused on, and what I think the current board has focused on, is trying to keep the cuts that we've had to do away from the classroom. So it's not just teachers that have been asked to do more. You can go into some of the district offices and they have 3 less staff in there, like in the finance office, than they maybe had 3 years ago. They are being asked to do more everywhere. It's all of the district.
Thank you very much. Jim Sorum.
Okay. Right. When we meet, and we meet annually for our budget, and we'd also have a 5-year plan where we spread it out and determine what are going to be our needs based on the revenue coming in from the state, and if we have the levy referendum that continues on. So as we meet, and as it was said before, we have parent engagement groups, and then we have a whole list of things that could be cut and where they could be cut by various departments. School budgets have to be cut individually, which is unfortunate. And it all comes down to, we have more learning supports, and I think was mentioned before, we have more learning support staff because we have more than needed students that have to have these learning supports. So it's not directly in the classroom, but all the other support groups that we have to have that take care of the students. And so those are the budget type items that we have to be careful about.
Thank you very much. Dan Steerett.
Well, I would say, begin by saying, hopefully it's something that we can see coming and can prepare ahead of time for, anticipate for. One of the strengths of Bloomington Public Schools over the last several years has been the reserves that we've had on hand in order that we've been able to tap into to prevent having to make some of the cuts that other districts have had to make over the last 8 to 10 years. And that's something that I think is that the board and the administration deserves credit for in helping to steer us and averting us from that issue, that situation. That being said, I mean, if there are situations of shortfall that we need to address, I would rather get creative with ways of saving and reinvesting money in the ways that it needs, where it needs to go before we start cutting things. I think we tend to look towards staff to cut, but the last thing we want to do is increase the size of our classrooms. I know in high school at Jefferson, I was in speech and debate, and that was always on the cutting block, it seemed, when school funding was running low. And I think that those kind of programs are as essential as anything else. So.
Thank you very much. Mike Polk.
I would say first is budget getting short. I would like to have, if I was on the board, hopefully I will be on the board to help make these kind of decisions, but I would like to have a meeting with all the staff to sit down and talk about what cuts they think we should cut together, because we do have a lot of good programs going on that we need. And another thing, personally, I would think if we do need to cut, I would cut staff from the top, not the teachers, not the staff that doing the everyday work for us with our kids and families. And I would always say to a family, a parent to come in and ask, why are we cutting this program? I would say, well, I would like for you to give me the pros and the cons so we can sit down and talk about it before we cut anything. 'Cause I think the big issue is by bringing in the community, because you guys are the one voted us in to make these decisions. But I think by giving it back to you guys to help us make those decisions, to continue to make our school grow, our district grow, I think that'd be a good asset for all of us.
Thank you very much. Paige Roman.
You know, I think a budget at its core is a statement of values. It's a statement of the board's values, that these are the things that we, I'll say we, collectively, for those of us sitting here, assuming if we were on the board, these are the priorities, and these are the things that we believe are important. And so, faced with a potential budget shortfall, you have to look at what are the levers you can control, and the things that you are able to move. Then you have to have conversations either with the community, with staff at the district, and with all the stakeholders, basically, about these are the things we can change and get the feedback. You know, it's a hard decision that no one wants to stop doing something that they are passionate about. You know, whether it's bigger class sizes, whether it's the conversation about one high school, whether it's extracurricular activities. Also, is it a short-term problem that we can fix in creative ways? Is it a long-term structural problem that we have to address, because it's not going to get better? We can't pretend.
Thank you very much. Now we've come to the end of all the panel questions. So for this next question, this is your chance to address anything that was not asked of you or to comment further on any answer you gave before. And each person can have 1 minute to do that. And can we start on that with Marcia Sitzma?
I was torn between two questions. The first one is how I would advocate for low-income special needs and minority students. And I'm going to just say this is what I do every day. I do it as part of my day job. The other, and so I have made it a commitment in my work life, in my career, to be approaching all of these questions with what we call cultural humility, which is a lifelong process of learning to see things through other people's eyes. The other one is the gifted ed. I'm going to tell you that my kids both went through Dimensions Academy, and the biggest benefit from going through Dimensions Academy was the social emotional learning that came through with that. It was much more about learning how to become, to use their gifts And actually, one of the proudest moments of my life was when my youngest daughter earned a silver medal in making growth on social emotional learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth Beebe.
I've been doing a lot of research, and that's one thing that I do. And I have been finding out that we really do need to work more on preparing our students, as Dawn mentioned, with the College and Career Academy that Bloomington Schools has. But as I talked to the man who started that, he is a former shop teacher. And there are 7 different pathways that people can take to get a certification. And it's a great opportunity. However, only out of the 1,500 students per school that are eligible for that, about 400 students are taking that. And by the year 2020, 35% of our workforce population is going to be retiring. And among it are our infrastructure workers that we're not replacing. And we need to encourage that among parents and students to look at other options. Thank you.
Thank you. Paige Roman.
One of the questions that I heard when I was sitting here for the City Council Forum was about the folks surrounded the issues around immigration and the hot button that's been in the nation. And I know at our schools that has been a challenge for some of the students in feeling like that's a tense point at home or for their family or for their neighbors. And I have said this before and I will say it again, I think regardless of what is happening around that issue, as our school district, we always need to make sure our kids feel like the schools are a safe place, that families feel like when their kids come to be placed in our care to learn, that the focus doesn't matter who they are, or where they come from, or who their family is, that they feel like their kids are going to be taken care of, they're going to come back to them as in the same shape or better than they were when they were sent to us.
Thank you very much. Mike Polk.
The question that I didn't get, it was about the achievement gap. And for 16 years working in the school district, I've seen a lot, talked with parents, kids, because I work with kids every day. And the main thing that I get from them and their parents is a lot of the kids are being defined who they're going to be in life. So that put a negative thought in their head. And another thing is when they get that, they lose trust. And when a kid loses trust of our education system, it will never be caught up again. And we have to learn how to build our kids up to help with the achievement gap, because once they get the trust in the education system, they'll learn more, there'll never be problems, and we shouldn't have to necessarily worry about their home life, because when they come to school, they should be safe and they should be able to learn. But if you tell them that there'll never be nothing, this is what you're going to be in life, and don't give them the same opportunities that we give other kids, it will hurt the achievement gap. And I think that is part of the reason why the achievement gap is down. And plus the culture of the school is a big problem too.
Thank you. Jim Sorum.
Sitting next to Mike, I guess I'll go along with the achievement gap thing too. It's interesting. It's a system. The state has 8 categories of students that we measure, by culture: white, Asian, Black, American Indian, Hispanic, and then we go special ed, free and reduced, and ELL. 8 categories we identify students as. So if you have a class of 24, that might mean you have 3 of each of those students that fall into those categories. And so if you're teaching, it's very difficult to teach across the spectrum. You need to have additional staff, you need to have supports, and sometimes we have pull-out programs that can work, sometimes we don't. We have another program that started in the elementary schools, AVID, which is by individual determination. How are you going to succeed? And so it's been a special effort that's like an elective class that they have to understand that it's up to them. It's their own situation, and as much as the students are coming in and we have trends and students are going out, there's always going to be a difference.
Thank you very much.
I
Tom
could talk
Bennett.
more, but I can't.
Yeah, it was interesting because as all these questions were read, I was writing them down and trying to figure out, okay, what can I answer that someone hasn't already said? And when you have 9 really good candidates, that's kind of an impossibility. I thought I had a really good one for for the Career and College Academy, but then Dawn took my answer. And then I thought I had a really good one for the achievement gap, and then I think she took my answer again. I think she referred to it, but also I'll go ahead and elaborate on that one a little bit. She referred to it as the opportunity gap, and I agree with calling it the opportunity gap. Because when you say achievement gap, I think you're kind of putting the onus on the individual that is falling behind by saying, well, you're not achieving, so therefore it's your fault. When really, when you get to the root of it, why are they not doing as well is because they don't have the opportunities that some other students have. If you have students that come to kindergarten, that come from a two-parent home, that are fluent, that are native English speaking, they have different opportunities than some of those that haven't been afforded those opportunities. So what our responsibility as a school district is to try to fill those opportunities so those kids could catch up. And it starts with quality preschool, which is why I'm glad this district went out for the voluntary all-day or voluntary free preschool for 4-year-olds. And I'm out of time.
Thank you very much. Dawn Steingoff.
Okay, I'd like to address the first question too about advocating for students. This is what I did as a volunteer before I ran for school board. As a parent, I spent a lot of time working on legislation and advocacy stuff for children in this state. Just two that I want to speak to that I see at school is I was part of adding the social emotional development actually to the early childhood screenings. Then previously that was not part of an early childhood screening, and some kids could do really well on maybe numbers and letters, but not so well on that part, but yet they were determined ready for kindergarten. Another thing that I learned that the Department of Ed was doing pilot programs for positive behavior intervention and supports, and I worked with Eric Melby at the time, district staff, to bring the PBIS to our schools, and most of our buildings are now PBIS schools, which addresses how we deal with behaviors in the school and how we treat individuals with behaviors.
Thank you very much. Dan Steerett.
Well, based on my background in organization development consulting, I kind of look at the Bloomington Public Schools through a different lens. And one of the things that I am most concerned about is the breakdown of trust between our educators and the board. I grew up in Bloomington schools as a student. I'm a parent of students in Bloomington schools now. The more that I explore and get under the surface, the relationship that's going on between educators and the board, I grow a little concerned. I think the contract negotiations from a couple of years ago are still straining the relationships. And speaking with Superintendent Fujitaki, I know that baby steps have been taken toward repairing that relationship. I think we need to invest much more intentional effort and opportunity in repairing the gap, because ultimately it's our kids that pay the price if the organization isn't working the way that it's supposed to. I would give a final shift a little bit and say I'm going to use the rest of my time to give a plug for getting involved in your PTA. I've been a member of the PTA at Westwood Elementary since my kids started in kindergarten. I just joined the PTA at Oak Grove Middle School since my son started there this fall. PTAs are more than fundraising arms of the local schools. They are a place to interact with teachers, for parents to interact, and to become more involved and active in what's going on in your children's education.
I think your time's up.
Pardon me.
But we're going to have another chance to speak here in just a second.
Sure.
Thank you for your remarks. John Moravec.
Okay, I want to echo what Dan said about morale. We got to fix that. Now that that's already been said, though, I wish I was asked the question about the one high school, because I'm knocking every door in the city and talking to a lot of folks, and the elephant in the room about it is the question of equality versus equity, right? People want one high school so kids at Kennedy can have the equal opportunity as the kids at Jefferson. Well, I do not think that we should have equal education. I think we need equitable education. Now, my job, I get to travel around the world. I get to visit the best schools in the world. I get to visit some of the worst, too. And I've never seen a top-performing school that is a mega school, right? The best ones, the best systems, the best schools are those that focus on what each kid needs him or herself. They focus on individual growth, which we can look at year over year. So do we need one school? Do we need 2 schools? Do we need 13 schools? We need equitable schools, and I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being good sports about answering the cleanup question. Now it's time for your closing remarks. And I was just thinking about whether there's enough time to, so it's 8:45. If we give you each a minute instead of 30 seconds, if you stick to it, because we have a time limit here for the video. So is that all right, timers? We'll give each person a minute for your closing remarks, but please stay within the minute and watch for the stop sign. Okay? So can we start, please, with Dawn Steingoff?
Okay. So I think that my experience when I was doing the work at the Capitol shows that I know how to collaborate to get to the common goal. I was appointed to 3 different task forces during that time, and I was appointed once by Republicans and once by DFL. So I know that they know that I'm working on what's best for students and to collaborate to everybody to reach a common goal. I believe that a quality education for all is essential to our democracy. We must continue to work together to provide the best educational outcomes possible for our children. I want to continue putting my experience and passion to work for the children in this community. So please vote to re-elect me on Tuesday, November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth Beebe.
I have a commitment to education. I have a commitment to this community, and you can see evidence of it if you go to my website and find out. But most of all, I am committed. I have the time. I'm in a season when my kids are grown, and I will be in those schools, and I will be watching, and I will be learning as I go through the schools and listen to the teachers. I also already am listening to the residents as I go door to door. And I am committed to families and children and teachers because that is our future. And we have to give them opportunities in the classroom to have the tools that they need to be able to close the education gap, the achievement gap. And Lord, I just want to pray because I think that each one of these people here have giftings that we need to respect and use. And I'm thankful that I can be among these people, and I collaborate, and I work with people. And I am a person committed to community and committed to making things work for the students.
Thank you very much. Marcia Sitzma.
There's a number of issues that we have not talked about tonight. But I do think that our schools are where our children learn to respect each other and learn how to build a community. Along those lines, as a parent, as a single parent of 2 daughters, I am not only focused on safe schools for all students, where every student feels respected, but I'm a champion for diversity and equity in my daily life and in everything I do. And I also am committed to preparing students for life after school, including partnering not only with businesses, but with the unions who provide trades that I remember from my childhood with my grandfather and my father and the people in my home. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Steerett.
That day that I was out to coffee with a friend and decided to run for the school board, I texted my wife and said, I said the simple text saying, "I'm going to run." And she texted back saying, "Run where?" And while she at first didn't understand what I was talking about, we had talked about it plenty, about my decision to campaign. I think the answer I would give to her question, run where, is to run toward the mission. The mission of our school district is to be an educational leader, developing in all our learners the ability to thrive in a rapidly changing world. Good policies, appropriate resources, and the right people are needed to run a school district, but it takes trust to achieve the mission. Building trust between board members, administrators, educators, our students, and our community will be my highest priority. I hope to earn your trust and your vote. Thanks for considering me for one of your top 4 choices on November 7th.
Thank you. John Moravec.
Well, to echo Dan a bit, I'm running to put kids and teachers first. And this begins with building a culture of trust in our schools and communities. It's about placing trust in our teachers as professionals It's about placing trust in our students that they're always learning no matter what. It's about placing trust in parents of recognizing the importance of their involvement in the education of their children and the lives of their children. And placing trust in our community leaders to develop Bloomington a place where we all want to live, work, and play. So I want to say thank you to League of Women Voters and PTSA. I'm sorry, I got it backwards here. You can join our movement, learn more at johnmoravec.com. We're having meetups around the city. Our next meetup is on Friday at 7 a.m. at Caribou in Old Shakopee in France. And everybody is invited to join the conversation. I hope to see some of you guys there too.
Thank you very much. Tom Bennett.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the PTSA Council for sponsoring this event, and all of you for coming here to learn about the candidates and everyone watching at home. I'd also like to thank all the candidates. I think we had a really good conversation tonight, and I learned a lot about where you guys stand on the issues. And we have some really good candidates, so you know, it's going to be hard for the voters to narrow it down to 4. I wish all of you guys luck, and I hope you guys all tie for second place. I'm running for re-election because I'm passionate about public education. I've been in public education my entire life, from kindergarten through 12th grade to community college to universities, and I've only taught in public schools. I believe in public schools because I think it's the great equalizer of our society. That's why I choose to send my children to public schools. I think it's the institution where it doesn't matter what's your income level, your ability level, or where you come from, or what you look like, or any other defining characteristic. You have a right to a quality education, and I think that as a board member, I want to stand up and defend that right. And I'm out of time. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mike Polk.
I want to say thank you for listening. My experience in public schools and mentoring youth in the community makes me qualified to serve on the Bloomington School Board. And if given the opportunity, I will be a big asset, not only for Bloomington Public Schools, but for our city as a whole. We need to make sure that our school is a safe place to learn and grow for everyone. The time is to make a changes now. I hope that I have your vote come November. Vote Mike Polk change. But then I got like, please vote for the referendum. And I would love to talk about things that I would love to do on the board. If I get on the board, hopefully I will. And I've talked to some teachers about things that I would do to help them communicate better with the board because, like Dan said, the reputation of the board in the community is not high right now. And I'm willing to be a leader to help change that. And I would always, once a month, have a meeting with all the teachers, at least one grade at a time, to talk about their concerns so we can change the direction of our school, because years ago we was in the top 10 in our district, in our state. But now we're in fell so far behind, we got to figure out why. And I like to be part of that team to bring us back where we were. And I hope to get your vote come November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Paige Roman.
Well, thanks to the League of Women Voters and the PTSA for this opportunity. Thanks to all of you who came out tonight, or for those of you who are going to spend some time maybe on the couch in your jammies watching this hour and a half of conversation among us, for being engaged. I think that's important. If you have more questions, please, by all means, call or email me. My contact information is on my website, paigeroman.com. Thanks, Dan, for not being the only one who got spousal consent to via text to run for school board. I hope you all have gotten a sense of me as someone who would be a board member who listens to everyone, asks tough questions, builds trust, and approaches problems with common sense solutions, because I think sometimes the stickiest, the biggest problems, if you take them apart at their core, sometimes common sense, if it's more common, we can solve these problems. And I, too, would appreciate one of your 4 votes on November 7th or sooner if you so move to go out tomorrow.
Thank you. Jim Sorum.
Thank you for the league, and thank you to the PTSA. Being that I'm a veteran member of the board, and I kind of am concerned about some of the people talking about some of the problems that we've had. In the past, we always haven't had smooth riding on a school board. We haven't had, we've had issues, we've had concerns, and we haven't been the so-called rubber stamp that people think we are. We've had a lot of 4-3 votes, 5-2 votes on issues. We've all had an opportunity to speak. And so it's very important that you understand all of that. And I hope I've been able to portray myself as a positive, experienced, progressive, and knowledgeable candidate who understands the importance that this district must have a comprehensive framework in which to provide all of our students a learning path from birth to graduation. And for every student to realize there is more than one pathway to success. Now, as was mentioned, electing 4 members from this group will not be easy because of the commitment by everyone here. But my experience and understanding of all aspects of school boarding is necessary for success. Please vote for Jim Sorum by November 7th.
Thank you, candidates, for participating in the forum and for your participation in the democratic process by running for office. Thank you to the Bloomington PTSA Council and the League of Women Voters Bloomington for organizing and sponsoring this forum. It's been video recorded. You may watch it on the LWV Bloomington website, on YouTube, and on the city's website, and on Bloomington Cable TV. Thank you very much, audience, for attending tonight's forum. And please, everyone, remember to vote on or before November 7th. That concludes the forum.